All the panelists have joined, right? Kate, are you there? Yeah, Kate is right in front of me on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
I'm
guys.
here. Hi, Akshay. Good to have you here.
Same here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
So, just a quick introduction. Thanks a lot, Neslia, for that meaningful discussion. And I was listening to the questions which Abdullah asked and which Ahmad asked. Very interesting. And in fact, you all covered most of the questions we had for this panel discussion. Just that we'll have a lot more brainstorming. In my opinion, there is no one way to have a team for an analytics setup. Each one has its own recipe, right? Just like you make your own food every day for the same pasta, you have 10 different recipes. The same way for analytics, every company has different needs and different sorts of team structures work for them. Now, as we would all understand, China, the US, parts of the Europe, they are far ahead in terms of the way AI and data analytics has evolved there. But let me tell you that the way Middle East is coming up in the last few years. In fact, they've set up a ministry for artificial intelligence and a smart governance thing in 2017. It's not too far away. AI and data analytics has a meaning every industry that we talk about today, whether it's transportation, space, traffic, retail. The Tesla self-driving car. When you visit stores in the Middle East, whether it's a landmark group store or a Carrefour store, or you go to online websites, you see multiple things like smart mirrors where you can virtually try on clothes without really going to the fitting rooms. You look at websites like Lenskart where you try on different glasses even without really going to the store. You talk about companies like Home Center or Carrefour. There's a Carrefour City Plus that's come up in Dubai, which you directly scan and you go out without having any touch point, any physical contact with any person. So I think we've come a long way in this market in the last few years, and I also realize the fact that more and more organizations in the Middle East have started to realize the importance of data and analytics. And whether it's the financial sector, they all realize that technology and AI is going to be the competing differentiating factor. Without spending any more time on the introduction, specifically moving to the key discussion for today, we'll be covering three major aspects, three major questions today. Uh, the most important question, given that we are in the middle of a major shift in decision making through data and analytics, the first question revolves around what is it that is required to bring about a shift in data and analytics culture in any given organization. Now, today we have multiple organizations from a e-commerce retailer on this panel to Sharjah Cooperating to a real estate player like DMAC. So it will be very interesting to hear from you. Let's start with, let's say, Sean. Uh, what's your experience in different markets about this specific thing? Like, what's the best structure? What's the best approach to bringing about this change in the organization today?
I'll put in another plug for my talk tomorrow. Well, I'll talk about it in more detail with respect to data scientists, but more broadly, yeah, that theme is a huge point of discussion with all of our customers in the UK right now, where I'm based. Everyone's under pressure from their senior leadership to be more data driven. I mean, we've all been saying it for 40 years or 30 years, but now it's becoming that thing. You have to do it, or it's going to become a real competitive barrier. And I think the payoff is more than just for the organization. I think when I think back to my own time as a data scientist, data science leader, and most recently working in the automotive industry, which is in some ways very far ahead on data, in some ways very far behind. If we can change data culture for our organizations, we're also going to make our organizations more interesting places to work for data people who increasingly have a choice. There's a massive war for talent. It went quiet maybe in 2020, and now no one can hire enough people at the right skill levels. And so there's benefits to doing this. It needs to be collective effort. But if you're a data leader, it's not just a good idea for yourself or for your organization. It's maybe one of the things that you can recruit on as a differentiating advantage.
Absolutely, Sean. In fact, you mentioned a very significant point that data is no more a luxury to have; it's a necessity. It's just like your mask during COVID times, right? Like companies don't have an option currently, and I see that most companies, whether they like it or not, they have to rely on data for all their decision making today. And in fact, you touched upon a very sensitive topic, and I think all of us being from the analytics world on this panel, we are all going through that in terms of the talent war you mentioned. Every interview you take or every discussion you have with a prospective candidate, they have a few offers in hand already. So it's become like a war to get the right talent, and very well put forward. Umesh, would you like to add something on this specific point in terms of what is required to bring that change, or in thought process of the management or different teams that we have, supply chain or operations or retail, to bring about that change in culture?
Yeah, thanks, Akshay, for the question. So I'll talk from my own experience, what we have experienced in Sharjah Corp. Sharjah Corp, as you all know, it's a retailer, grocery retailer in UAE, and it's a cooperative. So people might think that, we are very traditional in nature and all, but we have soon realized, I mean, it's been 2 years now, that the data is very important. So the difference now is that there's a democratization of data, and many people have talked about it. Each company, small or big, has got loads of data. The main thing is what data you prioritize. So what we started doing is we started prioritizing zero and first party data rather than relying on second and third party data, because that is the most accurate data you can seek for. And then start putting all these different kind of zero and first party data into one place. So as to have a single source of truth. So we started with making marketing cloud, and then we started making BI cloud. And then started making sources so that these two clouds can talk to each other. And our next step forward is to integrate with financial partners, for instance, because we always undermine them, but they are very important because financial partners have the kind of data information which we will never have, because we will know what my customer is buying from me. So they are spending 10,000 dirham with me. So like, it's a good customer, but he might be spending 20,000 on grocery. And that my financial partners can say. So what I mean to say is that everybody has data. We need right set of people, right set of understanding. And like you said, everybody has their own recipe. So you need to choose your own recipe, what works for you, what does not work for you, which data is more accurate, which is not accurate, and then start taking decisions.
Yeah. So, Vish, what you've essentially mentioned is that our financial partners are sitting on a gold mine, and retailers like us are going to pay them a hefty amount to get that data.
Yes and no. See, you don't need to always pay money. You can always partner. You get something for them. You give something to them. But that data, like I said, it's again a zero or a first party data, and it's accurate. So, I mean, I've come from a market research background, and I come from a background which is a very third party data, which is customer behavior, asking them claimed question and all. But I have realized that that is not a good way forward, at least in a new world which we are living in. We have to live with something which is an accurate data coming from customer, or a data which customer gives by their own self. So if I give the data to you, then it's okay. But if it is coming through third party and all this stuff, that data is not reliable.
And trust me, Umesh, you mentioned that you were in market research, but I was in finance and I was in banking for a long time. So we bankers know that what we're sitting on, and it's gold mine. Trust me, like barter does not work here. Yeah, we know that we have the edge, and we're gonna charge you big money for that. Elbit is smiling, and Elbit realizes that being in real estate, how difficult are those conversations with people to acquire their customer data, especially their HNIs, to buy the big villas that the Mac makes. So Elbit, any anything that you would like to say on this point?
I definitely agree with you guys. Like there is so many good points that were also raised by Sean. Like I feel like all of us are kind of having really in the same time almost the same experience irrelevant of the industry. So the part definitely I would like to just kind of touch base on two areas, like in terms of the importance of C-level sponsorship. So like I believe a lot of companies are now in this situation that they realize like the only way is like to really go through the decision making using the data and leveraging what they have. So definitely for me, I think that's the key, because like that's going to be deciding the pace of the transformation and what's going to happen with the company, and scale until which you will be able to operate. And then definitely two other points is like I know a lot of companies are already in a situation that kind of, you would say, dashboards like a lot of areas in a business, they're thinking of perspective dashboards and reports and kind of give me the data that I can consume. But this is in a lot of the cases where the kind of the thinking stops. So there is also very high importance to have change, like change agents and like data translators and people in business that are very focused on analytics, and they can think how to utilize the data beyond dashboards and reports, how we can really, drive our business and how we can embed analytics into operations, into our day-to-day stuff, how we can enrich and close that loop of digital and analytics. So that's definitely the part. And what Sean mentioned in terms of talent, I feel like everybody's experiencing the same thing. Now market is like really hot at the moment. So I definitely agree with that point.
Yeah, in fact, Elvid, we are in the same industry, and Sean mentioned a very valid point regarding talent war. It's good to be in that space when you're, searching for some opportunities, but it's really troublesome when you're trying to hire a few people in your team. So I think a lot of us are enjoying both sides of it. And Kate, anything you would like to add on the specific discussion we had around bringing about data culture change and talent war and importance
Thank
of
you.
data? Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually like to echo what Sean was saying, that, we've been all talking about being data driven for the past 40 years, right? And it's been on the agenda, it's been a priority, but actually when you talk and dig deeper and you start asking questions, I would say that all the companies, they're still on somewhere in the spectrum, where on the left-hand side, we see standard, what I call reporting factory, right? So it's usually very IT-centric. Few people have access to data, many have questions, they create a bottleneck, data sources could be siloed or limited. And then on the other side of spectrum is kind of, perfect situation, right? Where with self-service analytics, with everyone having access to data, all the data being integrated, and we are in this beautiful creative analytics circle, asking questions from data, finding insights, and, moving towards the innovation, right? And in reality, the companies are somewhere in the middle, right? And the good thing is to have a strategy to move towards the perfect situation, which may not be achievable, right? We are all on this journey, and we understand that this journey, it is difficult. As Neslihan was saying, it does take time to even establish the collaboration between different parties, to have this dialogue between IT and business users. And I think what Elvid mentioned is very important, is C-level sponsorship and executive buy-in, right? So someone very high saying, yes, this analytic strategy or data culture building has to be a priority. And this is when things start moving. And I would like to say that in Middle East, we see it not just on the corporate level, but on the government level, right? There is a strategy. There is a very strong sponsorship of AI, of analytics. And that's why I think, this is a great potential of things that can come in the future. And in terms about the culture itself, right, it all consists of three things: technology, the right technology at the right hands of people, people. So to your point about analysts, and also growing your internal talent, right? Not just hiring the best talent that they're on the market, but having some programs to grow internally talent, not necessarily like data science or analysts, but what we at Tableau call champions, right? So this is the people usually from business that understand their particular area and line of business, but they're quite savvy in analytics to be able to be this bridge between IT and business. And the third part, which is very important, is kind of methodology, the plan, how to put technology and people together and work on this change management, because it is a change, right? And the bigger the company is, the more, people are opposed to change and less flexible. And this is a very hard work to convince them in the new ways and show them the value and the result. And at the end of the day, the ROI, right? Whether it's, we are seeing new opportunities or we help reducing the cost and time by doing the processes differently.
Absolutely. I think, Kate, very good perspective. And I totally agree with you that, there is a requirement for a bridge between IT and business. But I also feel that there's a bridge required between IT and analytics, because a lot of companies use this word interchangeably nowadays. But to be very honest, it's very, very different. What IT was going through probably 25 years ago is what analytics is going through today. And my next question tends towards the fact that probably we can involve somebody who serves us almost every day. Khan, good to have you on the panel. and thanks for feeding us regularly across the world. So, Khan, my specific question to you. I think Kate mentioned a very specific point around how do you partner with IT and businesses, and how do you make this entire analytics team sustainable? Now, in your opinion and in your company, two specific questions to you. Which is the most convenient or the most important department where analytics can have an impact, where in a short span of time, whether it's marketing, finance, operations, where do you see the biggest pie? And secondly, how do you basically have a clear distinction between IT activities versus analytics activities? Uh, if you can take that question, Khan.
Yeah. So for the departments, actually, let me start with the departments. I believe I'm going to give an example from Talabat, because when I joined Talabat was a very small company, but even there's only a couple of people in the data side. I realized that the marketing and product teams was very data savvy, because what I realized, the company is spending money on marketing, right? So they want to understand what they gain from that money. So that's why that culture shift, I believe, has happened much earlier, especially money-consuming departments. So because the company wants to understand where this money is going. But especially if you look at the sales and the finance, it was very it was lacking the culture of data, especially in Talabat, because they were achieving their targets and happy days. No one was asking how they are utilizing the analytics, how many of the flows are automated or the manual. They are tracking stuff correctly or not. So they have group of targets they achieve, and no one is even asking what's happening with that group of people. But that's why I think that the problem why some departments are more data savvy, some departments are not. It's not it's sales are old style or marketing is a new style departments, because of a cultural problem, and it's also coming from the management as well, like the set of targets and incentives. If you don't give give a target that salespeople will give better input, like they don't even understand garbage in, garbage out the mentality. So because no one is asking from them, so no one forced them to shape their culture. Technically, yeah, marketing people are more close to the data tools, because they are using these tools to do their digital marketing. Sales people are a little bit, and finance a little bit outside of that. But I believe with the proper cultural incentives and targets, they can be also in the same level of marketing and product. For example, it's very interesting, the operations. Operations generally, if you look at the skill set of people, call center and stuff, they are less skilled people are working in operations, right? But we are spending money on this department hugely. That's why they are even 10 times better than sales, because we are spending money and we want to understand what's going on over there. They are trying to utilize the performance in the best way. So because basically company was realized how to use analytics in certain departments, but they didn't understand how to utilize the analytics in sales, for example. As long as they meet the target, that's okay. In finance as well. But later on, what we realized in tech department also, we realized this, because they don't have a mindset of data. They just make the development, but they don't think about the rest of the world. So they are working in a silo. That's also another problem we faced in Talabat. When they are growing, also we give this culture to them. So they need to save the data in a way that so everyone can benefit from it. If they just save it in a way that they can use it, it's useless, at least for us, for the rest of the company.
Absolutely. I think very valid point, Khan. In fact, you touched upon the right thing that, there are certain departments, I won't name the departments because there might be some of my colleagues on this call who find it very difficult to understand and consume our data. And they are from the strong belief that as long as they hit the numbers and they achieve what they need to achieve as a KPI, they don't really need data analytics. So until the cloud bursts on their head and they realize that, what, I can't achieve my target and I need some support from data and to understand what has happened, that is when they really turn to analytics. And I felt that during the COVID times, when everything was so unpredictable, People weren't sure what's going to happen. That is where we started to get a lot of traction, to be honest. Just like the e-commerce industry benefited from COVID last year, we saw a sudden boom in the Middle East where penetration went from like a 5% for a big conglomerate like Landmark to a 15% approximately, or even higher. Similarly, for analytics, I see a lot of teams, whether it's finance, operations, retail, supply chain, marketing, their belief in data analytics just went to the next level because they weren't sure what to do next. They weren't sure what's going to happen, and they see analytics as the predictive people. You tell me what's going to happen in the next 3 months, and I'll buy my inventory accordingly. I'll plan my marketing budget accordingly. I'll plan my targets accordingly. So that's a very, very valid point that you've touched upon, Khan. And would be good to have your perspective, Nestle, and given that you gave a wonderful presentation around the same topic. Any final bite from you on this question, and then we move on to the next one.
Thank you. Actually, like reporting part, as I mentioned before, the data strategy is a unique part to be governed. I mean, if you don't govern your data, if you don't put some rules to your data, then you will never know what is the right to take the decision for. I mean, if you don't know that your data is clean enough, if your rules are really run in the right order, or your rules are approved by the C-level or the business lines, you never know your decisions are really correct. After applying your decisions, when you run your models again, then you can see that you have made a wrong choice. So the governance is a real issue to work for data. Most of our companies don't have data governance, but they try to run some rules. If you don't govern your data, then it's not always, it doesn't show the right decision that you have to take. So if to be accurate, you have to know that your data is clean, your data is governed in every way. I mean, from the regulations part, from the business part, and from the C-level part also, because things are changing. And if you don't update the change to your data, so then you never know you do the right thing.
Absolutely, Nestle. And in fact, a lot of companies, the way they are structured, a lot of them, the analytics team especially, they consider themselves as users of data, while IT is understood to be the custodians of data. So I think there's a very thin line. I think it is extremely important for the analytics teams to have the right data, but predominantly the governance of data and the accuracy of data is still predominantly with the IT teams in most companies as on today. But yeah, thanks a lot for your perspective on this first topic. And with this, we'll move to the second point. In fact, Abdul, from one of our participants on this discussion, asked a very relevant question, which is my next question. Which is the best organization model for an analytics team or a data AI team, whether it's a split of data sciences, data engineers, solution delivery team plus product teams, or you should structure our teams by solutions. So for example, you have customer analytics, you have supply chain analytics, you have retail analytics, you have operations, you have supply chain. So in your opinion, let's start with Sean. It's been a while that we heard you, Sean. So what in your opinion is the right way to structure an analytics team? And you might want to answer this specifically by vertical, let's say banking, retail, e-commerce, or you might want to give a generic answer to this.
I think, and it also goes back to the discussion, where do you go initially to create demand and serve that demand? You need to balance people with problems that can be solved. It's also good if they have any data. I've spoken to lots of business teams in my time who definitely had problems and they definitely had ambition, but you dig a little deeper and they don't have any data. Maybe they just get this third-party data from somewhere, and that might be all that they have. So that's a great point, Umesh, that you made about getting your own, and Neslihan actually in your presentation. It's always disappointing when you're working with a team and you see that potential and they haven't got they haven't even got their own data, and then they're asking you for assistance. So I think I would say it depends less on vertical, more on kind of the stage that you are in a journey. Many organizations we work with are basically decentralized de facto, that maybe they're very early on, and so they've not done much yet, but they've got data people dotted around, and that's fine. That can be a nice way to get started. Usually then someone from IT or with an IT or data hat comes along and says, let's gather up these people and put them in a center of excellence. And that's cool, because then the data people feel like they've got friends all of a sudden. But then slowly the connections that they had with the business erode and erode and erode and erode. And I've been part of all of these models and been in motion between them. And then at the final stage of maturity, people realize we need some compromise. Most of us on this call would call it hub and spoke, but from Data IQ's perspective, at least, there's about 20 things that you need to decide that, what is central, what is local, and that's a common discussion at the moment. So I think it depends on what you're working with. If you've got nothing out there, it's going to be really hard to boot up any of those more mature models, and getting any success is probably a good thing. But I think a lot of places over-centralize and over-functionalize. So they have 15 data scientists. They sort of send them out as emissaries to different parts of the business, but they never immerse deeply enough. So I think for me, the final evolution is when there aren't really data teams organized by functions anymore. They're kind of out there doing great stuff in the business, and centrally all that's happening is enablement, upskilling, stitching things together, working on common data models. But very few people get there, because that's a level of investment that is very difficult to convince people of. So I think functional is usually the way people settle with when they're starting, and then picking that right moment, I guess, to move to a more business-centric alignment. That's the key decision for data leaders to help their organizations build a business case to do.
Yeah. Sean, I think a very good perspective. And in fact, in all my previous organizations, I have been through a similar transformation journey, where we started off functionally, where people are there in pockets, analysts, data scientists sitting in different teams, different functions, different pockets. And then the management decides during one strategy meeting that, why not consolidate and have one center of excellence, where they call it COE, labs, or whatever you call it. And let's get all these people together. And probably it will lead to cost optimization, cross-learning, and all of that. But very rightly said that in this process, there are chances that you might lose out on the connect you had with business, because when people are in the business, sitting with the functional teams, their exposure to business is a lot more. So probably a good answer to this could be that when you have this movement from functional to center of excellence, you have to ensure that there are certain bridges that you still keep intact, which Kate had also mentioned, which are the translators who are very well connected to business, and also every solution that the data scientists prepare in COE is well vetted from a business perspective also. So that's
what I mean about the additional investment required. It's so you did one thing, you made another change. Now you have to go back to the business and say, now we want to hire even more people to have fewer people in the center. And that is a very difficult message to land. It's the right message, but that's what I meant by the business case. It's completely agree.
I totally agree, Sean. Yeah, and to be honest, we at Landmark started a specific in-house team around 6-7 years ago. And trust me, the journey has each year, the way we've evolved as a team, and the way the management has supported the team because they saw the direct benefits. It's been a much easier journey when you actually present transparently the impact of everything that you're doing. How every hour spent by our team of 5 people when we started off, and today we have close to 120 people in the team. So that ROI per team member per function has really benefited us in terms of scaling the team to where we are today. Also, the next question on similar lines, I think Sean answered it really well. And my specific question to you, Kate or Khan, anybody who would like to go for this, how do you think about an onshore-offshore model for analytics? Because let's think of an example like Dubai. It might be extremely difficult to get as many team members as you would need for a specific company. Let's say, for example, for Delhi Day Hero, all your analysts, data scientists, data engineers sitting out of here and operating out of here. So what's your take on how successful or how powerful is the onshore offshore delivery model for analytics across organizations, and what's your perspective on that? Kate Khan, anybody? Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can go with that. So actually, because the nature of our business, we have a mix of everything. We have different departments sits in Germany, different departments sits in Egypt. Rest of the departments are in Dubai, and we have a very big collaboration with Delivery Hero Holding and Talabat employees as well. And also, last 5 years, we changed our structure from central team to kind of distributed, but everyone is still under data team. So I see a lot of changes during last 5 years. I don't think there is one best approach for all problems. It depends on the company, and it depends on the culture, depends on the business as well. But this is the Talabat is a high-pace online company. So right now, I see some benefits when we have offshore teams, because these teams generally focusing on creating data products for us. So instead of creating a touch point with business, they are like a support function for all the companies around the world. I mean, they are supporting Latin America as well. They are supporting Talabat as well. And that they have some centralized services, and they are giving this data to us in a real time. So anyone wants to consume, they can consume. So that style was just created, by the way. Before then, everyone was joining their source tables, trying to create an analytics and stuff. There was no maintained model between that. But right now they have it. So actually we get really good benefits of that model, like documenting everything, and it's like a plug and play. So the the teams can work like that, because communication, there is a lack of communication, right? They are working in different time zone. They are working in Friday. We are in off on Friday. So the time is matching with them. It's very low. So that's why giving this kind of a plug and play environment was really beneficial. It really increased our efficiency. And also, I don't believe putting offshore teams. If an offshore team is going to deal with a business, I believe they need to sit with business. So it also, that's why in Dubai we have this middleman layer is there, that basically they are dealing with the business, and they are dealing with the core tech people, which is like data modeling, data engineering, and algorithms departments. So right now we are using combination of horizontal or verticals. By the way, it was a centralized model. Now we create horizontals for high technical skilled people, like data engineering. They don't need to know about what's happening in the business. Their job is only data engineering or algorithms or data modeling for them. So basically, as a business analyst, you don't need to know which is the best model. So these guys are supporting all the verticals. The verticals are like, there's a group of people only supporting to operations. There's a group of people only supporting to vendor management, let's say. So right now we are trying this model. So these horizontals generally also supported by Delivery Hero as well. It looks like working for us, but like I said, each company's nature is different. So one solution can work with us, maybe not work with some other company. So I believe it's very important to think and create the right structure. Like iterate a little bit more, so we can find. Until this point, for example, it was very painful. Like it was a very painful journey, but I believe now we will get the benefits of this new structure.
Thanks, Khan. Kate, your take on this specific point.
Thank you, Akshay. I just wanted to add just 2 points. The first one, it's actually very interesting to hear that even within the same company, the team structure and the way things are set up is changing and evolving with the way the company matures, the needs change, right? and it gives me the understanding that there is no silver bullet or perfection. There is a right structure for the right time and for the right business requirements, right? At the same time, what I wanted to make, if we're talking, I agree with you that Akshay, that if we are working with business teams that are closer to the business, that understand the problems and can show ROI, it's much easier to prove the value. At the same time, we really need to have the processes of not getting this several separate lines of business being siloed, because analysts sometimes in a different business lines just creating kind of reinventing the wheel, right? So there should be a mechanism of coming back together for collaboration and sharing of best practices and actually sitting around the same table, learning from each other, right? And this way you could help to increase the overall level of data culture or analytics knowledge throughout the organization. And regarding the point of remote versus on-site, onshore, offshore, I think for the past 18 months, we've all been kind of remote, even if in reality we're in the same office, would be in the same office. And yes, obviously it does create some barriers in terms of collaboration. But at the same time, I think, especially for the companies like our company, like, that have people in multiple offices across the time zones, it actually pulled the barriers down, because, I don't think we would be able today to sit all in the same room because everyone has its schedule, travel arrangements, and so on. But now we are all able to sit here in one virtual room and have this wonderful discussion together, right? So I think if what we are shifting towards is ability to have success from anywhere, if you will, right? So the ability to access and collaborate, whether we are in the office together or whether we are remotely, and to have the framework. Of course, there will be some functions that have to be dependent on the industry as well, that have necessarily to be on site, and there will be people who've been working in the field and they will never be in the same place or in the same location. But I think for majority, it has to be some kind of flex agreement, if you will, right? So that has to be established framework that allows people to collaborate, align strategy during the in-person time, and have the remote time to be to execute on that strategy. And if we extrapolate this on the future of analytics and AI, the first question is the data should be accessible regardless where you are, where you're trying to get it from. But at the same time, it has to be, of course, secured and governed and compliant with all your internal or other like regulator frameworks. At the same time, the second point is the tools have to be, the entrance to the analytics have to be lower, so people can access it with various types of knowledge as well as various types of means, right? Whether it's like, if I'm a C-level, I want to see reports and dashboards on my mobile or tablet, I should be able to do this regardless, right? Or if I want to do some analytics on the fly, I can do it on the web. I don't need to install the app and go into difficult models, right? Of course, that's, now I'm speaking very generic, and it all depends on the use case, and there will always be exception of this. But in my opinion, this is where we are going in this kind of flexi model that will enable us to have the maximum benefit regardless where we physically are.
Absolutely, I think you made a very valid point, and I think you also touched upon how Tableau is getting into self-serve analytics and the product, and how people can be, they don't need to rely on complicated coding languages, and they can just do it on the fly with click of buttons. Taking stock of time, moving on to our last section of this panel discussion, I would invite Umesh and Elvid to take this question. So there is a school of thought, and once again, this would depend on the maturity of the company and how mature your solutions are. But more specifically, as a 3 to 5 year roadmap, Elvid and Umesh, what do you think? Is analytics on the fly, which means that a business is facing a certain problem today, you analyze data, you create a recommendation and give it to them, or self-serve products or solutions is the answer to long-term solution for analytics? So Umesh, what's your take on this?
Yeah, thanks, Akshay. I mean, it's a very valid question, and somewhat Kate also touched upon it. It has to be a kind of an hybrid strategy. So, I mean, just to from a self-serve versus solution on the fly. I mean, at Sharjah Corp, we were a traditional brick and mortar. So when we started analyzing data, we didn't have a luxury of developing something, fresh. So we started dealing with consultants to create customized solution. I mean, to start with, we didn't have the luxury of even people. We didn't have pure analytics team sitting inside Sharjah Corp. But we realized over time that there are many solutions which are available in the market, which can be used as solutions which are on the fly. And then we started doing certain customizations. And I mean, Tableaus of the world and all of you guys who are catering to that market, they are not expensive per se versus hiring a lot of people. So you can use those products. They can cater to the business need which you want. At the same time, you and your IT team together, you need to collaborate. So the idea of those CTOs, CIOs of the world, that does not hold true a lot right now, and it won't hold true in the future. So all of you have to work together to create those customized solutions in-house as well. So you need to have a balance of both. The things which are not answerable and which are not possible to do inside, yes, on the fly kind of a solutions are available and those should be used. But at the same time, you should always try and use things and try to make things in-house as well. And that way you can have your self-serve products.
Makes sense, Umesh. Elvid, your take on this specific piece? How does it work in real estate?
Yeah, I would say it's like so many parameters, going to this decision. In case of real estate, it's like, for example, if you would take some of the way that analytics is moving today, like in a lot of the cases, you already have solutions that are quite mature and ready for specific line of industry. So you would say, like, for example, dynamic pricing, what you have in retail is very mature, I would say. If you say dynamic pricing in real estate for a real estate development company, you have 2 papers that are done for somebody's PhD. So like kind of to reach to the stage that, always is good, like kind of at least to do like quick POC and kind of show the value. I think that's the key to be able to have any type of roadmap for the product use case or anything. So like when you have something off the shelf, it's quite good, but very rarely you're going to be in a situation that fits 100% of your needs. So that's kind of the complexity of the decision. So it's always, I would say, like it really depends on use case to use case and maturity of the product.
Absolutely agreed, Sean. Yeah, in fact, we as a company, we started off with a model where we did have some solutions in mind for retail. We started developing those, but wasn't anywhere close to self-serve or applications. But we are slowly transitioning towards building our own applications, which are in-house, whether it's to do with markdown, because pricing is a very important component in retail, whether it's inventory management or customer, which I think is applicable to all. So we are going through that journey, and I feel that as your analytics products mature, as your solutions mature, there are minimal changes required on a regular basis. That is where you start thinking about self-serve, because you need to optimize your costs, your agility to provide the solution to the business, because everything is time now, right? Things are changing so fast that business cannot wait for you to prepare a recommendation for the next 3 days. They need the results now. Elvid, I'm sure you understand the way the real estate is behaving in GCC currently, especially Dubai, UAE. Your CEO must be telling you every day, Elvid, tell me the new price for this property. I need to make money on this.
That's also based on last point when I fully agree with this on-site offsite approach. One is like definitely this type of culture that you have within a company. Sometimes it's like when you add the leg of somebody being US and past document requirements, goes back and forward. Some of the cases you have from idea to product, like few days really to launch. So like that really highly depends on a company. 100% depends.
Absolutely. We have 5 minutes to go in the session. Muslim, that's right? We have 5 minutes left. One last question, open to everybody. Probably Sean, you can go have the first go. Talent war, the word that you mentioned, Sean. In the next 5 to 10 years, where do you think we will have the biggest talent pool for analytics available? Whether it's to hire for your own respective region or you set up your office in that region. So your take on that, Sean?
In the mirror. So the best way to reinforce that need for cultural change that we started off at the beginning is to actually have leaders take defendable data-driven decisions. It's not that easy if you're a data leader trying to tell other people to take data-driven decisions, and then no one can explain the decisions of the higher ups who are saying be more data-driven. So in the mirror and in the company already, there's lots of people who understand numbers, and they just don't understand that they can be data people yet. And so that's always been much easier for me, is to find and identify those people, upskill those people, than recruiting, even when it was slightly easier. The training and enablement kind of programs, the masters in data science, they can't churn out people fast enough with the skills that you actually need, in my personal opinion. You've got people with the knowledge and the context already, so steal them from your colleagues.
I like what you said, like people in the mirror, like, people, a lot of people know numbers, but they don't know that they know numbers actually. So I think it's very important that people realize the potential that, everybody can be an analyst, to be honest. Analytics is 70% common sense, 30% hard technical skills, to be honest. And just to summarize, thanks a lot, each one of you, on this panel discussion today. I really appreciate your time, Khan, Sean, Kate, Neslian, Umesh, and Elvid. Based on a recent research paper I was reading, not really recent, but a couple of years ago, it was commissioned by Microsoft, research done by EY in the UAE. UAE has received the second highest investment in the field of AI in the last 3 years. And 1 out of 5 company in the UAE is thinking about AI, and 35% of the leadership in this country has a table discussion on digital transformation. So this tells us that, everybody in this region is thinking artificial intelligence, data and analytics, and I think we are all in the right space. And we should be happy about the space we are in. This is exactly how IT felt 30 years ago. And we have a couple of minutes left, Muslim. If anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot to any one of us on this discussion today.
Thank you so much. I think there could be questions, but the time is too little, so we cannot handle